Wife of Chinese missing human rights lawyer appeals to U.S. Congress for help. Rent a womb. Rich Chinese hire American surrogates to bear children. Backlashes as Chinese envoy denies ex-Soviet state sovereignty. The frustrating hiatus facing Chinese depositors.
The U.S. must publicly and consistently call for the unconditional release of all political prisoners in China. This and other powerful testimonies were from witnesses during a House Foreign Affairs Committee subcommittee hearing on Thursday, April 20th. The hearing was titled China's Political Prisoners, Where is Gao Zhisheng? Gao Zhisheng is a renowned human rights lawyer who went missing from his home in Shaanxi Province, China in 2017. Gao is a self-taught lawyer and a devoted Christian. He has been nominated 3 times for the Nobel Peace Prize. Gao started practicing law in 1996. He is best known for championing farmers' land rights and defending persecuted Falun Gong practitioners in China. The Chinese Communist Party imprisoned Gao in 2006 for so-called inciting subversion of state power. The CCP often uses subversion convictions to jail dissidents. He was released from prison and placed under house arrest in 2014 before disappearing. His wife, Jiang He, and Sophie Luo, the wife of recently sentenced human rights lawyer Ding Jiaxi, and other witnesses testified at the hearing in Washington. Jiang asked the U.S. for help during her testimony as she appealed to the U.S. officials in China to visit her husband and called the U.S. government to ask the Chinese regime to put him on a public trial and grant him visitation rights. She said, "If these cannot be achieved, it's okay to have Gao Zhisheng give me a call and tell me he's still alive. Just knowing he's alive is enough." Human rights lawyer Xu and Ding were sentenced to 14 and 12 years at a Chinese court for subversion of state power charges. In February, the U.S. State Department honored Ding as a global human rights defender. Congressman Chris Smith, chairman of the House Subcommittee, said he would introduce a bill to call for the release of Gao and other political prisoners. He also promised to push hard to pass his bill revoking the permanent normal trading status of the Chinese regime. Smith told NTD News that it's crucial to bring renewed attention to what is happening in China when he named the CCP's persecution victims, including Falun Gong practitioners and Christians. He said this hearing was to bring renewed attention to 2 wonderful political prisoners, men who have just stood up for everyone else's rights, and now their rights have been completely abridged by the Chinese Communist Party, and to push for their release. During the hearing, the CCP's brutal practice of forced organ harvesting also came up. Andrew Bremberg, president of the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, said before the subcommittee, the CCP's long practice of forced organ harvesting that frequently targets political prisoners and prisoners of conscience continues without condemnation. Bremberg praised the House for overwhelmingly passing the Stopped Forced Organ Harvesting Act of 2023. He urged the Senate to quickly take up on this bill, pass it, and send it to the president. Last month, the House passed the Stopped Forced Organ Harvesting Act of 2023 by 413 to 2. The bill aims to sanction anyone involved in the cruel act and requires the federal government to report on such activities in each foreign country. In March 2020, the UK-based Tribune Independent Tribunal into forced organ harvesting from prisoners of conscience in China issued its final judgment, concluding that forced organ harvesting has been committed for years throughout China on a significant scale and that Falun Gong practitioners have been one and probably the main source of organ supply. Gao Zhisheng and many human rights lawyers in China have defended innocent Falun Gong practitioners in court. Congressman Smith said at the hearing that he believed the Senate would pass the companion version. That bill, I believe, will pass the Senate and will get to the White House. He added, it's a collaborative bill and it's totally bipartisan.
A Heritage Foundation researcher said the mass hiring of American women as surrogates by wealthy Chinese nationals is a security threat to the world's #1 country. Emma Waters, a fellow at the Heritage Foundation and an Independent Women's Forum member, told Fox News, "We don't know who these children are." Waters expressed concern that these complicated U.S. citizens would return to the U.S. years later, become involved in research or sales contracts in academia, or even apply for jobs in the field. An increasing number of Chinese citizens over the age of childbearing are hiring American women as surrogate mothers, since this reproduction method is illegal in China. Many Chinese have had to resort to surrogacy because they need to fulfill their wish to become parents. However, Waters noted that if you look beyond that, this is a long-term pathway for Beijing to send people deep into the US industry undetected. She stressed, "It seems like a really obvious continuation of that is having US citizens who are fully Chinese. After decades of a strict one-child policy, the Chinese regime relaxed family planning regulations in 2015, allowing couples to have more children. According to Waters, these changes have spurred a trend of Chinese citizens seeking surrogate mothers abroad. Hundreds of clients seek surrogacy at US fertility clinics each year, but exact numbers are difficult to track because they are not reported. Waters said embryos are manufactured in China or the US and then implanted in the womb of an American surrogate mother, who will give birth in the US. These Chinese children will maintain full rights as US citizens, even though they will be raised in China. Apart from America, only a few countries, such as India, Ukraine, Laos, Colombia, and Georgia, allow foreign surrogacy contracts. In the US, paid surrogacy is legal in only a few states, and none of the states require reporting of surrogacy contracts with foreign nationals. In addition, there are no federal laws regarding surrogacy. Although no official records are kept, California clinics appear to be the center of the surrogacy industry. According to NPR, California surrogacy agents say hundreds of babies are born to Chinese parents yearly. Waters said, "California-based surrogacy is some of the most technologically advanced and easiest when it comes to foregoing any legal complications." She commented, "Which is terrifying." Waters found the websites of several surrogacy clinics in California. They are available only in English and Mandarin. 3 clinics have offices in China, and one advertises itself as a top destination for international surrogacy. Waters said it's time for Congress to enact a law to oversee foreign surrogacy contracts to protect US interests.
Chinese ambassador to France, Liu Xiaye, infamous for his wolf warrior diplomacy, is stoking criticisms again for his recent remarks on Soviet states. When French TV asked about the peninsula of Crimea that Russia annexed from Ukraine in 2014, he said, "Even these ex-Soviet Union countries do not have effective status, as we say, under international law because there's no international accord to concretize their status as a sovereign country." The episode was aired on April 21st, which sparked fierce reactions from France and countries across Eastern Europe. Speaking with the Wall Street Journal, a French foreign ministry spokesperson said that France holds the annexation of Crimea by Russia in 2014 as illegal under international law. The spokesperson said, "We stress our full solidarity with all of our allies and partners concerned who have gained their long-awaited independence after decades of oppression." 2 European envoys disclosed France had received a request to call in the Chinese ambassador, but a French diplomat said he did not know of any such particular demand. Latvian Foreign Minister Edgars Rinkēvičs tweeted a demand for an explanation and complete retraction of Liu's remarks. The Wall Street Journal noted that Liu's views have been at odds with China's official policy. For example, in 1994, China recognized the agreement that made Russia respect Ukraine's borders and for Kyiv to surrender its Soviet nuclear weapons. Beijing also gave security assurances to Ukraine at the time. Furthermore, according to Beijing's February position paper on Ukraine, respecting the sovereignty of all countries was its top bullet point. It even stated all countries, big or small, strong or weak, rich or poor, are equal members of the international community. All parties should jointly uphold the basic norms governing international relations and defend international fairness and justice. Ukraine's ambassador to France, Vadim Omelchenko, tweeted, "There's no place for ambiguity. Crimea is Ukraine. The Soviet Empire no longer exists. History moves on." When Chinese Communist Party banks abruptly backflip on depositor funds, account holders have to contend with harassment and violence from CCP authorities. According to CNN, many Chinese depositors haven't been able to withdraw their hard-earned money since 2022. So, in desperation, they poured their last hope into protest despite the risk of the CCP crackdown. Du, one of the protesters outside a branch office of China's central bank in Henan province, said, "People like us have been robbed of money, yet we are treated like criminals." He placed all the money that his family had accumulated, which was $726,000 or 5 million yuan, in an unnamed rural bank. The fund has been inaccessible since last April. From then on, Du said his means of sustenance were begging or receiving donations. He said, "If I can't get the money soon, then my children and I can only live on the streets without a house or a home." The publication does not provide the interviewees' names for their safety, but some revealed they were monitored, harassed, and even attacked by the police while they desperately called for the return of their own money. For example, Du was beaten during a peaceful protest last summer. The bank fallout happened last April with an estimated 400,000 savers at 4 Henan rural banks and one other in Anhui province affected. Only a small number managed to regain their money. Others are having their life upended. Victims told CNN that those not compensated were from the other provinces. Experts suggest that the authorities may have been more inclined to repay depositors who live nearby because they have more potential to form and stage protests. Even those who carefully skirted the demonstration were targeted, such as the harrowing experience of a middle-aged couple kidnapped in March before China's 2 sessions annual meetings. The man said CCP officials captured them to prevent what they thought could be a looming protest to disrupt the important political event. The unremunerated victims assert they have not even attained the basic payment, worth up to $73,000 or 500,000 yuan, that the government promises in case of a bank crash. Zhang from Beijing said the CCP's attitude is that as long as they've suppressed the people with problems, there is no need to pay back the money. It is completely different from how Silicon Valley Bank was handled. He was not the only one frustrated with the contrasting realities. In fact, according to CNN, protesters were holding up placards and banners that read, "America's Silicon Valley Bank customers got their money back in 3 days, but China's Henan Village Bank's customers haven't been given a cent for a year."